Hi, welcome back to the Premier League show. We're going to talk Liverpool now, and their poor season continued last night when they were beaten 2-0 by PSG in the Champions League. So, going to get Dean's thoughts on that in just a moment. But first, let's hear what Tim Sherwood said earlier on whether they have any chance of turning that tie around.
On the evidence of last night, you give them absolutely zero chance. The only hope they've got is Anfield, and we keep talking about it. Now, I've tried to have a look back at how many times at Anfield they really have turned it around. Is a little bit of a myth. I mean, Anfield, I played there. It's a magnificent stadium, and when they get behind you, it can help. But if the other team's so superior to you, I mean, the Barcelona one in recent history is the one that stands out, which against all odds, they turned it around. But this side is different.
Dean, do you think that the Anfield factor is a bit of a myth, as Tim was saying there?
No, it's a special place to play. It's intimidating when it's at its best.
It's loud.
It's just, it doesn't feel like I've seen it enough, certainly over the last season. Too many times I've worked on games at Anfield and it's just not been there. The disconnect has been there between the supporters and the manager. That's grown, and even the way the team's been playing. The supporters haven't connected to that at all. So there hasn't been the energy that you expect, because the crowd the energy from the crowd is there, but it's not been matched with what's been on the pitch. And when that does connect, that's when there can be the really special nights at Anfield. But I just haven't seen both of those connect. What I've seen on the pitch, the energy, the belief, it isn't there, and that's why I give them very little chance to turn that tie around, because the gulf was so massive last night between the two teams, and I don't see that energy being built by the team in the second leg for that to be turned around, and that's the big question I think that probably surrounds the manager, is more about that than anything else.
So interesting that you've noticed that working at the games, and the players must be noticing that energy's not there as well then, and that maybe feeding into their confidence too.
Well, too many players haven't been at the level we've expected of them, and there has to be a reason for that. It's not just that all of a sudden overnight a few of them have got old. That just isn't. It's just not the case. Something isn't right at the club. Of course, we have to take into consideration, a very, very difficult summer for everybody at the football club, and in terms of that big turnover, in terms of recruitment and trying to bed, new players in, but ultimately the players haven't been at the level that they're capable of, and there has to be a reason for that.
What about Slott's tactics? Because Jamie Carragher said that he got it massively wrong last night. What did you make of the changes that Slott made with playing three at the back?
I mean, I thought part of it made sense just because of the threat that Paris Saint-Germain will have against you. So, of course, I could understand when they've been struggling defensively, especially away from home, to go to the Parc des Princes and set up in a real defensive manner to try and nullify the threat that PSG have. But they didn't do that. They did set up with a back three and the wing backs and Gravenberch in front. But they didn't stay like that. It wasn't a rigid, solid away performance. They were springing out of their positions. Konate would spring out, Gomez would spring out, Van Dijk was then isolated at times, and Paris Saint-Germain still got in. That's what surprised me. It wasn't the fact that he went with that system. I could really understand that. What I couldn't understand was then how disjointed that system looked when you're playing a team that are probably the best at rotating within their team.
Were you surprised that he dropped Mo Salah for this one? Was that the right call?
Yeah, it was the right call. He's not been at the levels that we expect of him, or the levels that's required of a player to start a game. He hasn't, and that's on him. It's not on anybody else. He knows the levels that he's capable of. Last season he was absolutely unbelievable. This season he hasn't been. A lot of that is on him. So he has to take that on board, and you have to accept sometimes the reality of how he's been playing. The thing that'll hurt him the most is that last night he sat there once again and watched other people jump off the the substitutes bench to get onto the pitch, and he didn't. That's what will really hurt him.
I know you've touched on this and you talk about the energy not being there, but what do you think has been the main reason for Liverpool's poor season?
I think the big turnover in playing staff, and not enough of them certainly being good enough or reaching the levels that they're certainly capable of, or what we saw from them in their previous clubs. I think they've had some issues with injuries, of course, to some key players, especially that right back position has been a problem. And the way Arne Slot sets his team up and the way they have played, they've averaged the most possession ahead of City, but it's quite ponderous. You know, it is slow. Again, when I've watched the games at Anfield and you want that energy, it's not been there. The style has been, you know, very ponderous, and then it's interverts and there's a bit going, and then that's it. And there hasn't been that pace and energy that I thought we saw more of last season than we've seen this season. And again, that is down to the manager.
Let's take a look at Liverpool's remaining fixtures then, because next up for them, it's Fulham on Saturday. That one is live for you on Sky Sports. Look, with these fixtures here, Dean, can you see them finishing in the Champions League places? It's quite tricky. There's a few tricky ones in there.
Not on current form and not on current, I think, confidence. I don't think so. You know, they've got to go to Hill Dickinson Stadium to face Everton, and they've got to go to Old Trafford and face Chelsea and Aston Villa, who are all fighting for the Champions League spots. I mean, look, of course, if they can turn things around very quickly with a great performance against Fulham and get some energy and some confidence back in the side, then it's within their grasp, because they get to play all of those teams in and around them. So finishing in a Champions League spot would actually feel like a success, I think, in terms of the amount of games they've lost already this season and the negativity around the manager. Getting a Champions League place would feel really big, I think, for him, certainly.
Yeah, in terms of the manager, what do you think the future holds for Slot? Will he be there next season?
I think it's going to be very difficult. I think there is that disconnect. I think, you know, Liverpool supporters historically certainly do back the manager, but again, there's been a lot of noise around the tactics and the style and the lack of energy from Arne Slot's side, and he's got an issue with who's available. Xabi Alonso's waiting in, so there is that pressure. I mean, he wins the Premier League title, and then he's fighting for his job the next season. That's how ruthless the top level is. But you can only go off what you see and the results that the team have created. But I still think there's that chance to finish in the Champions League places, and another summer to add more players, but also give the players that they got last season that extra season to work with the manager that might come into play.
Okay. Look, plenty more coming up on the show.
And Liverpool fan Montel Bowen joins us live now. Montel, a very good morning to you, mate. You have been, as we know, for everyone who watches Fan Club, a long-time critic, I think it's fair to say, of Arne Slot. What did you make of last night? What do you make of those Carragher comments, like watching a team from a lower division?
Yeah, Carragher was spot on. Absolutely spot on. I'm never going to get my 90 minutes back. If anyone did watch that game, they're never going to get their time back. Because what was the point? What was the point in even turning up at that point? Everything that Liverpool stand for, everything that Liverpool is about, that is not Liverpool. That's not Liverpool. That was a disgrace to English football. That was a disgrace to the best or most famous and the largest European English team in Liverpool Football Club. I haven't seen Liverpool been pulled apart, torn apart, embarrassed like that for a long, long time. And the manager's right, to be fair on one thing. He was lucky it was 2-0. I've never seen a team go 5, maybe apart from Amorim, a team play with a 5-back and look worse. We were still conceding chances. There were still gaps. We looked disjointed. Van Dijk looked uncomfortable. This is a 5-back. We might as well just play 4 at the back anyways, if we're going to be that open while playing 5 at the back. That was a tactical disaster class. And the 2-0 isn't because we decided to play defensive. The 2-0 was because PSG didn't take their chances. PSG showed mercy. It wasn't about if the second goal was going to come, if the third goal was going to come. It's more of when. And now we go into a game where, because they're going to score at Anfield.
Yeah.
They're going to score. So we're going to have to score at least 3 goals to turn this tie around. And I feel like if you're going to go out, just, in my opinion, just go out swinging.
Yeah.
Just go out swinging.
I agree with that last comment, what you said, but I don't care. He's not lost that game yesterday because of the tactics. Whatever way you would have played, you would have lost that football match. You would have lost that football match because they are better than you. They can handle the ball. They're well coached. I think they have threats all over the pitch. If you played 4 at the back, whatever formations didn't lose you that game. The players lost you that game last night. But Arne Slot has gone against his principles last night to play anti-football, to try not to lose that football match and try and stay in it for the second leg. By default, on the poor finishing from PSG, you're still in it. Do you believe now? Do you believe? Obviously, by the sounds of you, you do not believe at Anfield next week.
Oh no, there's no belief. And as much as when we get a bit closer to the game, there might be just that little bit of hope. But it's 99% hope, 1% logic.
But Montel, nothing to do with the manager though. Your players are not good enough, are they, to take on this PSG side?
Yeah, but when have you needed to be the better team in a knockout game? Now, yes, there's context, but we've seen many a time Liverpool overcome teams that they are not better than. All you need is a bit of quality in the right moments. This is knockout football. Arsenal were rubbish. They were rubbish against Sporting. Rubbish. Yes, they have better players, but they weren't good. But that one moment of quality has now brought them back home and they have a brilliant 1-0 result, take them back to the Emirates. So the way I see it is that it's all about maybe just pre-planning. Now, understand, I'm not saying the logic was completely crazy to go 5 at the back and to play a defensive outlook, but it was very hypocritical to play like that. And I'll explain that obviously in a second, but to play like that with no press and no midfield, it was a 5-2-3. How can you have no midfield, 5 at the back, still look leaky and not even apply any form of press? Their goalkeeper was punching the ball unprovoked, refusing to catch the ball. PSG, these footballing teams, PSG, Barcelona, these brilliant footballing teams of quality all over the pitch, they are open. They are vulnerable. And that's how they look at Liverpool. But Liverpool, when we're tearing teams apart, they go, yeah, Liverpool have threats all over the pitch. Salah, Mane, Firmino, but they're going to give you a chance. They're going to give you a chance.
Montel, you're and I expected this from you this morning, right? But you are very much, when we put it in the scales, saying it's a slot problem compared to a player problem, right? My argument back to that is, how can Slot account for the drop-off in Van Dijk this season from the title-winning season last season, from Gravenberch, who was the best 6 in world football, according to many Liverpool fans last year, from McAllister, from the guys that he relied on? They're not doing it for him as well. There has to be some accountability on those players.
It's all of them. All of them, apart from Szoboszlai. He's the only one who can hold his head up.
And it was disgraceful. It was disgraceful from the players, especially against Manchester City. That game was even more on the players. The Manchester City game, that was even worse. I feel like the players have given up, and there's no excuse for that. If we're talking about Van Dijk especially, or if we're talking about Van Dijk and some of the players last year that were very good, Gravenberch as well. Gravenberch's role has changed. He's not necessarily being told to sit in front of the defence anymore. He's been given license to go forward. Terrible managing. Van Dijk is now 34. He's a year older, so he might be not that much slower, but he's a year older, so the mistakes are going to start to creep in. Father age doesn't miss any of us, and he gives his defenders less protection.
But Montel, I get this, and I know you don't want Slot there, and I'm sure you'd love to have a different manager there for the second leg against PSG. But how does anyone coming in and everyone's shouting, Xabi Alonso's name? He's adored at the football club, etc., and he did what he did with Bayer Leverkusen. But how does someone like that fix all these problems that you've listed there for 10 minutes?
Harry Potter.
And it's if I'm honest, I don't know who is going to necessarily fix the problems, because it's almost too little, too late. The damage has been done. Not just, as I said, Arnold Slot. What he has done, he has made losing feel normal at Liverpool. Do you know how crazy that is? 16 losses in all competitions since we last played PSG. That is now, I believe, it's 21 losses. Or 22 losses in all competitions.
Montel, when did you start to feel like this after he'd won the title? At what point did you... Because you weren't always like this with Slot. Yeah, I mean, if, this time last
Crystal
year you
Palace.
weren't saying this, were you?
Crystal Palace 3-0 when he threw the youngies on to die. But like Crystal Palace, when he threw away that game and then 4-1, we lost to United and we lost 4-1 to PSV. We lost 3-0 to Nottingham Forest. We lost 3-0 to Man City. When everyone was looking at us like, hold on, these guys have done very good. When Anfield has lost this aura, the fans have given up.
Montel, that game was in October. It was 3 months into the season.
Yes, and that's why everyone was going so crazy when I said I'm done with the manager. I just noticed it very early that these tactics, now that the tactics are on a hybrid of him and Klopp, and it's now his players and it's now his philosophy, I realised, wait a minute, we're rubbish.
But hold on, Montel, right? Arne Slot, because everyone keeps mentioning Klopp. Klopp didn't win the league with that Klopp team that apparently Slot won with. Slot won the league with a Klopp team.
Yeah, yes, and no, it was a bit of both. It was a hybrid of both, and that's why I believe he's the best caretaker manager of all time. That's what Arnold Slot is. He's the best caretaker manager of all time. And you know what's so cheeky about this? What is the audacity? He sat there in press conferences, consistently talking about how the Premier League's not nice to watch and teams that long throws and this style of play is rubbish and it's. Every team, why can't everyone play like PSG? Why can't we all just battle as one like PSG? This, that, and the third. Talking about PSG, presser after presser after presser after presser. You then get the chance to play PSG. And the same football that you criticize, the same football that you said you don't like watching the league for, is the same football you then turn out against PSG. You go and do the same thing. We were taking long throws from the 4th minute and long free kicks from the halfway line like we were Stoke, like we'd gone to, like it was a Sunday away game at Turf Moor. Understand that the hypocrisy of that is crazy.
But it's desperate times, isn't it? I get it. It looks hypocritical, but it's desperate times. And actually, that has worked in the sense that you're still in the tie, because if you go and play against them, you lose 5-0. You haven't got a single chance.
They're in the tie because of the poor finishing from PSG.
But they're in the tie because they conceded 2 goals.
But the problem is he has created this problem. The problem is asking us, guys, what's the problem? Guys, what's the problem? That's what the situation is. He's the problem, and he's asking everyone else what the problem is.